Go before the markup this year. It has been an aggressive schedule. I want to thank all of you for your participation during hearings and throughout the process. I know were many times that you had 2 or even 3 hearings at the same time. Everyone worked hard to address the issues affecting this bill, and I think that as you look at the bill and report, you will see that it reflects your input. In fact, the subcommittee received a 33% increase in member requests this year. 2,700 total requests were received, and this bill report contains support for about 95% of those requests, so I think we did pretty good. I would also like to especially thank my ranking member. We've had several days this year where we were in this hearing room for a better part of the day so that everyone had a chance to participate, and you have been great to work with, Marcy, and with the bill, and the bill that we recommend today, and it is better because of your input, so we appreciate that very much. We are also fortunate to have the strong support of leadership of our full committee, both the ranking member and chairman of the full committee. Your keen understanding of the important work that is done in this bill and your support for it are invaluable. The recommendation is 374 billion. 37.4 billion, which is 259 million above last year's level and 168 million above the request. Increases over last year are targeted at those areas where they are needed most to provide for our nation's defense and to support our nation's infrastructure. This is a responsible bill, one that corrects a number of budget gimmicks used by the administration to get around discretionary budget caps. The recommendation provides strong support for the Department of Energy's national defense programs. Weapons activities is funded at $9.3 billion, which is $438 million, up $438 million from last year's level. To keep our nation's nuclear deterrent reliable and effective, this increase will fully fund the ongoing stockpile life extension programs and will make substantial progress toward addressing the continued deterioration of legacy facilities across the enterprise. The recommendation for naval reactors is $1.4 billion. An increase of $45 million includes full funding for the Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine replacement. This bill rejects budget request the proposal to eliminate discretionary funding for the uranium enrichment, decontamination, and decommissioning fund, and includes $699 million for those activities. Likewise, this bill rejects the budget request proposal to reduce investment in the energy sources that we rely on today. Within energy programs, the recommendation rebalances the portfolio to provide a true all-of-the-above energy strategy. This bill includes strong funding for the nuclear energy, providing research and development to ensure safe, efficient, reliable nuclear fleet, and laying the foundation for the next generation of nuclear reactors. The request proposed to use $240 million in prior year balances to offset reductions in fossil energy account. This bill rejects this proposal, instead providing $645 million for fossil energy research and development to ensure the nation is utilizing its abundant fossil energy resources as efficiently and safely as possible. Funding for the Office of Science is $5.4 billion, an increase of $50 million over last year's level to continue its support of fundamental science research that keeps the nation's laboratories and America's researchers at the forefront of global scientific discovery. Yet again, the administration cut funding for the Army Corps of Engineers this year by $1.4 billion, even as it used gimmicks to avoid the budget cap and increase spending elsewhere in this budget request. This is the funding that protects our citizens, businesses, and other infrastructure from dangers and damages caused by floods and coastal storms, and that ensures our ports and waterways are able to move cargo and bulk goods around the country and internationally. Instead, this recommendation increases funding for the Corps of Engineers by $100 million above last year. This includes unallocated programs of $1.4 billion, with $549 million going to flood control projects and $735 million going to navigation. This recommendation makes use of all annual revenues from the Inland Waterway Trust Fund. Harbor Maintenance Trust activities are funded at $1.263 billion, the same as fiscal year 2016, an increase of $32 million above the budget request and $122 million above the awarded target. Finally, the recommendation includes strong support for getting the Yucca Mountain license application finished up, with $150 million going to the Department of Energy and $20 million for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. These are the highlights of this recommended bill, and I'd like to turn to Ms. Capter, the ranking member, for any comments that she may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all members of our subcommittee. I think he deserves some applause for that. I didn't know they talked that quickly in Idaho.
Oh, yeah. They don't act that quickly.
Well, it's a pleasure to serve with you, Mr. Chairman, and all members of this great subcommittee. Of the 12 appropriation bills being prepared just now, I'm proud that our subcommittee bill is one of the first 3 actually out of the starting gate for 2017. The bill funds incredibly important programs that can unlock America's full economic and environmental potential. However, the process by which we are proceeding, without the Budget Committee having passed a 2017 budget, is quite put the nation on a rather unsteady course, and it's really not fair to our committee, our full committee, and its subcommittees, and nonetheless we soldier on to fulfill our constitutional responsibilities. The bill before us makes important investments first in energy technology to advance a cleaner and more secure energy future that grows America's domestic capabilities and reduces the insidious political and economic effects of our gaping energy sector trade deficits, which have continued for decades now. Second, the investments in water infrastructure to keep our ports open for business, to mitigate floods, and to help our country adapt to the challenges of both water scarcity in our drought-stricken West and water insecurity due to toxic runoff in fresh, water-rich regions like the Great Lakes. And thirdly, it focuses on cleaning up our nuclear legacy to minimize the burden passed on to future generations, as well as deterring the threats of nuclear proliferation and responsibly maintaining our weapons program as a critical element of our national security. To be sure, this bill could be even stronger. Programs could be more fully funded. And the bill also includes some unnecessary and controversial policy riders that have been carried in the past and 6 new California water provisions. The riders further complicate an already difficult process, and I strongly object to their inclusion. Ultimately, though, I appreciate the hard work of Chairman Simpson and his good measure throughout, our members on both sides of the aisle, and our staff, who as always work in a collegial and inclusive manner. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Donna Shabazz, once again this year working under tremendous time pressure as one of the first bills and displaying grace and collegiality through all. And I also want to thank Tanya Berkman, our Democratic staff member, for her continued dedication and diligence and supercomputer mind. We thank them both for getting us to this point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Rogers' remarks will be entered in the record. Nicole?
Thank you. I'll just try and do mine as quickly. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
Would you like me
thank
to read
the
'em for you?
ranking member.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
I'm looking at the next one already. Long statement. I must also say that for months, Republican leadership has maintained that the budget and appropriations process will return to regular order. And here to the bipartisan agreement enacted in 2015, yet the House still has not passed a budget. It's doubtful it will. The most extreme voices advocate reneging on last year's bipartisan budget agreement and reject as insufficiently radical a Republican budget resolution that would devastate good-paying jobs, end the Medicare guarantee, increase poverty in our communities. I don't know why that doesn't refer to you, so
No, it
I
doesn't.
think, no, I'm going to
Can't
skip
believe
those
it.
paragraphs. Let me just say that this is such a responsible group. Even in the energy and water bill before us, however, while I appreciate the chairman's effort to increase funding for the Army Corps of Engineers, it still falls short of the billions needed to address infrastructure from coast to coast, as report after report details. Unfortunately, other critical accounts fall even shorter. We cannot afford to bury our heads in the sand on climate change, and yet the energy efficiency and renewable energy account would be funded at $1.825 billion, $248 million below the President's request. Additionally, at a time when it is critical to prevent nuclear materials from falling into the wrong hands, this bill would also underfund the non-proliferation accounts. The inclusion of misguided, dangerous policy riders is disappointing at best. An annual appropriations bill is not the place to amend or significantly change the Clean Water Act or restrict gun laws. These efforts year after year imperil the appropriations process. Including these harmful riders in the underlying bill is a direct affront to the regular order we all want, not to mention that Republicans can't even agree on the overall funding level we already set for the year in the December budget agreement so that we can begin the appropriations process smoothly. Furthermore, we have serious issues of national concern for which solutions have been delayed by political calculations. The administration should never have been forced by the majority's inaction to redirect funding that is still needed to combat Ebola in order to mount a robust response to Zika, which just yesterday the CDC described as scarier than we initially thought. Experts believe that Zika leads to deadly birth defects in infants and can lead to paralysis, swelling of the brain, and spinal cord in adults, among other serious health conditions. We don't have the luxury of fighting one public health crisis or another. We have to do both. Additionally, resources are urgently needed to help Flint, Michigan, to protect other communities from lead poisoning, to fight the epidemic of opioid abuse. So, thank you for your important work. I look forward to working with you and the ranking and all my good colleagues on appropriations to address these needs. Hopefully, we can get real soon. Thank you very much, Mr.
I appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to nuke those Zika viruses. That's what we do. Are there any other opening comments? Hearing none. Are there amendments? Hearing none. Is there further? Mr. Frelinghuysen, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Seeing the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. Let me remind members
Leave
to
materials.
please leave your copies of the bills and the report in the room, and I ask unanimous consent that the staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the bill and report without objection. So ordered.
Great job, Donna.
Meeting is adjourned.
Great job.
I was 1 minute late and you were halfway through the bill.
Come on, Lorraine, pick up all that stuff.
I'm celebrating early.
I assume everything is in.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's at the very front. I saw you. Something was out of here. Something was different, but I was